Hey, hey. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We're recording.
Oh, great.
How are
Oh,
you?
good. I love your Zoom background. It's fantastic.
Oh yeah, it's my friend John's house. He's house sitting for this place in Brooklyn.
I like to use a background sometimes, but that's why I got the green screen. But the lighting in here is very bad for that, so I won't.
Right,
Yeah,
but the lighting is nice. What?
it's a lot of fun. Yeah,
Using the green screen?
yeah, yeah. It
Yeah,
can be.
I couldn't decide which. I had like, the tropical island, and then I had Krabi, place in near Thailand. I don't know, but I don't. And then I had Jean Genet, and then I was switching it when you were logging in. So
Right.
this is the same as the previous show. So maybe let me change it to Let me see. All right, how are you feel? How are you feeling?
I'm feeling okay. I'm a little tired. I was out. Uh, where the I'm a nurse and we're striking now, and I was out like on the picket line all morning, so kind of like just tired of walking around.
Right. What are your what do you want changed?
Well, if you ask the union, they'll say it's about staffing, but it's really about money and benefits.
Okay.
They'll say it's about safety because they always do, but they want to take away our the the employer contribution to the 401k, and nobody wants to give up benefits and pay. That's crazy, you know
Right.
I,
Well, I don't want to
especially
get you
after
in
the year,
after the
you know
pandemic. I don't want to get you in trouble, so maybe we'll move on to something else.
sure, something more interesting. No, people don't want to hear about
All
other
right.
people's
So
problems.
how was your 2020? How was your COVID year?
It was good. It's weird. It's like didn't have that much anxiety, but now that things are over, I'm having kind of like delayed anxiety about all of it. I don't know. I tend to think about the environmental problems a lot, and that like really makes me feel like a little crazy. So, kind of obsessed with that, how, we're all gonna fry down here in Southern California. And, the temperatures are so crazy and all the fires and stuff going on. It's really uh makes me feel bad. I guess, I'm gonna die. Everybody's gonna die anyway, no matter what happens with the environment. But, I have these kids, so I'm always like concerned about their future. So I spent a lot of time doing that, freaking out about the environmental problems. In fact, after I'm done with you, I'll be tabling at the farmers market with this organization called Extinction Rebellion. And, that's always weird. I feel like one of those people, those religious nuts holding a sign that says, the end is near. Like people just think I'm some kind of flake or a crazy person. I don't know. What do you think about these environmental problems, Carrie? Do they weigh on you?
No.
You don't think about them?
No, I don't think I could I have the problem of listening to both sides. So then I get in the middle and I realize I don't know which one is right. And but I am not I'm not free from having doomsday thoughts.
Well,
The year prior to the pandemic, 2019, I was in more of a state of anxiety about like either a nuclear bomb dropping or the economy crashing and what would I do. So I almost rehearsed the global panic before COVID. So when COVID came, it actually it was a disaster, but it wasn't completely. Uh, and at least it had happened. A lot of times, anticipating a disaster is more anxiety producing than when it actually happened. I realized, okay, I can manage this,
right.
or that, and so I feel like I'd rehearsed the end of the world the year before, and so it was kind of a comfort to have it at least be happening. And actually, I don't know, there was something comforting about it, and I lost my job, but I was actually making more money through the benefits and the government help, and I just made like 4 feature films like in a year. I was like super productive.
Right.
So, but as far as um, so yeah, I don't need to look for an excuse to have apocalyptic anxiety. I'm sure it's out there if I want, and my imagination, you
Yeah.
know, is there because even when before I made this film, I was watching the guy who did Disinformation and Dangerous Minds. This guy Richard Metzger. He
Uh-huh.
had this show called Infinity Factory, which is on MNN, Manhattan Neighborhood Network, and it was an amazing show. He interviewed like Genesis Peorage and like Robert Anton Wilson and all these like people, and he interviewed uh, Howard Bloom, not Harold Bloom, but Howard Bloom, and he was a promoter, but he's also a biologist or a scientist, and he'd written a book called The Lucifer Principle about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have
I
you?
was reading that recently, weirdly.
And he was completely obsessing about that. This scientist from Pakistan was going to get a loose nuke and use it. The loose nukes from Russia. So that was the doomsday scenario that I had anxiety about that. But so yeah, it has to do with how I'm feeling, and then I'll find the crisis.
Absolutely. I've also been obsessing, because we're buying our home. I'm also like looking at all the house values that are like super inflated, and I'm like running around going, it's going to crash. Your house is going to be worthless. It's sell it right now. Yeah, I'm kind of like that too. I'm just like looking for something to keep me occupied with the nightmarish things that might happen. I try to counteract that with this kind of zen, don't know mind kind of attitude, but it only works so well.
Yeah, I think anybody finds that balance. I mean, I think you take on what you can actually handle, and unless you don't. I mean, I think like I couldn't. I knew I wasn't prepared to have children, so I knew that was something, because my upbringing wasn't ideal, and I had a bad temper, and I was just like, I do not want to. I know how sort of damaging that can be to a
Right.
kid's spirit and just sense of feeling safe in the world. And I just was like, I'm not gonna. Plus, I really wanted to just focus on making films, and if I couldn't make films, make music, and that's what gave me the most joy. But I really, I think it's amazing, uh, your family. I don't know a lot about it, but Peter and you have what, 3 children?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's amazing that you guys are still together and seems fairly healthy. And I guess a lot of people aren't having children, or the birth rates are low and so forth. And
Yeah.
but to have an intact, and the divorce rate is like, I don't know, 50% or more. And so to have an intact family is really kind of a beautiful thing. I mean, I'm sure it has its ups and downs, but it's
Right.
intact as far as I can tell.
Well, I feel like that's great to hear, that I think sometimes I don't appreciate that fact as much as I probably could. But I feel very lucky to be with Peter. He's uh, ex- incredibly easy to get along with, and he seems to really like me, which is always kind of perplexing. I was like listening to him. He's like, "You should interview my wife." I'm like, "Why? I'm not really that
You
interested."
got 2 votes for. There was another guy on YouTube who was like, "You got to interview Helena." I was like, "Okay, if she's up for it." So you got fans.
That's weird. Yeah, I don't know. Now I feel like a lot of pressure. I don't know. I was
No, I
feeling,
feel like I was just saying to friends that, I mean, it's amazing that my wife still loves me, and a lot of it is because I just let her do her thing. She told me like it was the first like partner who just wasn't ordering her around and like telling
Right.
her what to do all the time. I'm just like, look, I love you, and like if you want to do something, go do your thing, and I'll just be here. So we like have our own worlds, and it's like but also I realize that she loves a Carrie that sometimes I don't recognize, and I have to be okay with that she loves this Carrie that I don't know is that I don't really have contact with or might not identify as me, you know, but my sense of myself changes so much too. I mean, because I sort of was like, you know, I'm essentially a coward, you know, and my sweetness and niceness is just because I'm terrified of everybody around me and I want to like make nice. But I mean, I'm working on, you know, the difference between people pleasing and like being okay. But I mean, it's a trip to be married and with someone. I don't think I could have matured and grown unless I had that pushback, that push pull with a partner,
Right.
and also the you know the that it was a business contract. I told Melissa when we first got married, like that marriage is a business, and I was interested in you romantically, but not. But I mean, she like when we make deals about really important things like buying property or like or like I don't know where we're gonna live and all these things like um she's like you know sort of honored the deal. She hasn't like made an agreement and then want to like switch around. She hasn't, you know, she hasn't sort of made an agreement and then sort of wanted to go back on it and everything. It's all been pretty solid. So she's, you know, I'm really emotional and everything, and she's very practical and in the world a little more. So it's a good balance, even though we're very different. I think there's a great balance, and um, I think if I was alone, I would have not really had any incentive to grow or to mature in a lot of ways, or even just get sober, you know, and do so many things. I would have been, you know, I kind of would have, but so I'm happy about that, and I'm happy that she, you know, we've stuck it through with each other.
Yeah.
But we sort of got married sort of later in life too, where we kind of thought, well, I guess this is it, we're gonna tough it out alone, and then we found each other when we were set up. So that's my marriage story, but I'm
Yeah.
talking too much.
No, that's fascinating. You know, I second a lot of what you just said. I definitely felt it was an experience to help me mature as was having children. But I actually was not into getting married, even though I kind of really was married. So I would have this kind of like Peter sometimes would say, "Well, let's get married," and I go, "No, because everyone just gets divorced and I don't believe in marriage and I'm into free love." And this happened for like, you know, this went on for like 20 years.
Wow. Okay.
We were like, had a house and a mortgage and 3 kids. And,
But you weren't
you know,
married.
no, I mean,
Uh,
no, I independent, you know. But what happened was eventually we had to be legally married because of insurance issues.
right.
Uh, he was freelancing. That happened when our youngest child was, I think she was about 3. So I don't know when that was. And I would, you know, I was like, look, this is just to get you health insurance, Peter. We're still not really married. You understand that, right? Because I'm a free spirit that can't be tamed. And then,
He was
like,
like, okay.
yeah, he's like, whatever, sure, I do. I can go to the doctor now. And then finally, I was like, what? You know, I really do love Peter. And marriage, it doesn't have to be a nightmare, you know, like, you know, my parents and all of my siblings and all of my friends. It could be something really great. And then I was like, let's get married. So we actually had like a ceremony in 2020 in February, uh, in February 2020. So when was that, Peter? Are you there? When did we get married? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, we got to get the facts straight, or if they're wrong,
Yeah,
we're in big trouble.
it's February the 22nd, 2020.
Okay.
This was so I could
There's too
try.
many twos. My numerology says there's too many twos.
I'm trying. That was so I could remember the
What?
date, and I still forgot it because that's these things aren't like really important to me. So
No,
it's
I
probably the
understand.
22nd. Yeah.
I
So
I I had my first date with Melissa. We went to see The Goat by Edward Albee, about a man, a guy falling in love with a goat, and his family being upset about that. And we went to that on June the 1st, and then we were married on June the 1st. So our celebration of our wedding anniversary is the same celebration of our first date.
right.
And so me, I don't have the best memory, but that makes it easy. But then it was like the birthday of my best friend, and so that was a conflict too. I think that best friendship found it wasn't working after a while, and Melissa had a really close friend that didn't work for a while. So I think in a matter of, as we grew, there were some collateral damage, but whatever. But I'm trying to be vague to just not, to keep anonymity of people. But yeah, and I really didn't want to get married. I was like, look, I believe in being married, but I definitely don't want to move in with somebody. And if I do, I want a room with my own, with a door, because I understand I need my. And even the great thing about Melissa was that she would allow me to have, she'd actually say when we were dating, like, do you need your alone time? And I was like, yeah. And I was like, I need, and I would almost not want to ask the person I was with, can I have my alone time? Because I would think they would take it personally or whatever. But Melissa was really like, do you need your alone time? When we were dating. And I thought that was really great for her. So it's like, even when we were, so it's like, I don't mind getting married, but I really don't want to move in together. And if we do, I want my own room. And also, I might believe in marriage, but I definitely don't believe in divorce. It's just like, if this is a contract, I'm in it for better or worse, because I mean, life, just sucks, and you're either going to tough it out with me, or we're not. I'm not interested. I mean, barring physical abuse or whatever. I don't know. You know what I mean? It's like, and so,
It's
but
like a performance art or something, marriage. You make a commitment that goes on until
it's a
whatever.
prank.
Yeah.
I think it's a prank, but you have to follow through with it. But so is California as bad as the right claims it is?
I have to say, I'm not happy here. I'm pushing to move out of this LA. I just don't like it. I'm not in the industry. I'm not in, I was in a movie recently, but these are just fun. Always like to do like fun art stuff, but you can do that anywhere, really. You don't have to be in a big town. And it's just kind of, I'm not crazy about it. It's just everything, the cost of everything is so inflated here. It's kind of like New York like that, but I don't know. There's
So what are you doing creatively? How do you balance nursing and 3 children and creative? Are you doing that?
well, I was doing more of it lately. I haven't been. I like to think of myself as a writer. I was doing like doing monologues for a while, a couple of years. A friend of mine got me into that. So it's kind of like storytelling, but I wasn't great at memorization. So I would do more like dramatic readings. Sometimes I would memorize them, but it's hard
Do you think you
memorizing.
would? Do you think that you could use Zoom these days and also like pump in? I made a film once where I had the dialogue recorded, and I would perform it, and I had it pumped into a person's earpiece, and they had either putting hair over their ears or had a hat or something. Because I mean, that's
That's
what
fun.
Brando did in the old
Yeah, I heard
during the well,
I heard that he would never memorize things, that he always used cue cards or
yeah,
stuff.
later in life, yeah, he'd have his assistant like speak the lines,
Oh,
Um,
okay. Yeah, that could be something. I don't know.
but do you want to be with a live audience though? Would it be different from Zoom or something like that? I mean, it's, you know what I'm saying? If you performed in front of a Zoom camera and that would be your monologue, or do you want the be alive on stage?
Well, I've thought about, doing things like that, like puppeteering on Zoom, and I don't know. I'm like, I'm not doing too much creatively right now. I think, what I'd like to do would be to try to write a novel again. I've tried a couple of times. I don't know why I'm
Did
so
you
upset.
finish a novel yet?
I've never finished a novel, no, but I've
Okay.
started.
How far did you get?
Usually I get like maybe two chapters in,
Oh
but I've
yeah.
quite a few like first person stories, usually about my old boyfriends or stuff that's happened.
So do
There.
you write an outline? I mean, do you not have an outline? Is that why sort of the novel didn't get past two chapters, or did you not know where you were going?
I think I just lose steam because I sort of like write the story in my head, and then I'm like,
Why
oh
write it down?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's hilarious. And then like the hard work is, of course, is the actual, the, yeah,
Yeah.
that part of through.
I mean, I find it hard to write like a story, and then I don't know. Once the film like that was the most sort of narrative, like with a beginning, middle, and end, and people talking. I mean, when I say I make films, like people usually assume it's like, people talking in a story with a beginning, middle, and end, and a character who wants something and has obstacles and then overcomes those obstacles and they either win or lose. The classic three-act structure. And
Right.
then they're surprised that I make these weird, you know, avant-garde or whatever you want to call them. But I did make this film called Helping, about a guy who, was on a mission to help the world, and all he did was make things worse. But I had a begin, but it was because I wrote that by just becoming the character and just like putting on a recorder and just speaking these lines, and so sort of just improvising these lines, and then because a lot of times, so I let the character like be in me and then speak, instead of like the top down of like, oh, what does this character's kind of be and what it has to meet these bullet points. I just was like, I felt sort of, I acted the character and then I spoke it, and that seemed to make it a little more alive, and then we could actually build on that, and like other people could. That was like revolutionary for me once I realized that I could actually improvise dialogue and perform it, and then discover who this person was through just like improvising. Does that make any sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. I did something, an improvisational thing once. It's so much more alive. I did
Yeah.
this thing once with I don't know if you know of Becky Thayer. She's like an actress. Anyway, we did something called Crisis Van. It was like it was kind of a parody of those like intervention and those reality shows, and that was all improvised, and um, it was a lot of fun. But it keeps your interest if you're doing something like that, because you're
Well,
figuring it out at the time
yeah,
that.
and it helped me, instead of like, oh, what is this character, and try to figure it out as far as like, oh well, you know they like love dogs and they hate cats, or they, like, what are your character like, instead of like, I don't know, using like your left brain to write something of like, oh, the character's going to be like Travis Bickle or whatever, or the character's going to be like um Humphrey Bogart or whatever. It's like, um I never really liked it. Didn't, it was dead on the page. I'd write it, it would sort of be clever, it would sort of have the pattern of something that was successful before, but I was like,
Yeah,
it just was dead on the page until I sort of let the character come out of me. And I was like, and I think if I ever do anything sort of narrative that way before, it might come out that way. I wanted to make more narrative films, but I didn't have, you need a cameraman you can rely on, you need actors, you need them all to show up on time, you need the set. So
yeah,
it's like those are
very,
all
yeah,
more difficult to make, and so a lot of them I just like don't require a lot of acting. I just get my friends, and if they don't show up, I can replace them with somebody, and I sort of write along the way, and then something gets made, because there's no budget. But
right.
so you did okay. Well, what's your what's your first childhood memory? Do you have one?
I have a terrible memory, but I definitely, this is like such a typical memory. It's embarrassing to say, but
You know,
just staring out of the bars of my crib. Those
staring out of the bars of your.
I think a lot of people probably have that memory. I don't know. I grew up kind of poor. I had a long relationship with that crib. I was actually in that crib till I was like maybe in the second or third grade
Wow.
because we didn't have any money. So I was like always in the crib. Finally, I just threw a shit fit about it. I was like, I'm not a baby anymore. I don't want
Wow.
to be in the crib. So they put me in a different kind of bed. So, but I guess
Did you have siblings?
I did. I had a lot of siblings. I have six siblings,
Wow.
and we grew up in Baltimore. And but they weren't all in the house at the same time. When you have that many people in a family. By the time I was born, I was the last one.
Huh.
Some of them had moved out by that point. But yeah, yeah. Baltimore is a very weird place to grow up.
Yeah, John Waters tells me so.
Yeah, it's
So
kind
I
of
know it's
weird.
true. Yeah. And he
It's
sort of took the madness and quirkiness of the place and made with humor and made a career out of
right.
his love for Baltimore. What's your take on his take
Yeah,
or career? Or
I remember when I was younger, I would be kind of before I, matured and got kind of became like a cool, ironic hipster. I was actually kind of irritated about those movies. I'd be like, oh, he doesn't understand poverty. Grew up in a
wow.
wealthy suburb of Baltimore. He's making fun of these people. But I kind of chilled out about it. It
Yeah,
is,
but that's a legit argument, you know. It's like but but he's also I think helped me like have more of a sense of humor to get through sort of dark times and understand and look at the absurdity of my own situation sometimes and get out of the self-pity. So but I think, you know, you certainly could make an argument that he's speaking from sort of a, you know, I hate to use the P word, but and he said something about his parents that they always made him feel safe.
yeah,
And I think for people who are really struggling with seriously with the issues that he in mostly in his, you know, in his films, that the you know, the misfit or the criminal had a an upbringing where they didn't feel safe. And so
right.
and if the home isn't safe and then inside isn't safe, then there can be real trouble. But so that's very interesting, you know.
I think
uh
one of the things that he really captures about uh, Baltimore, that one of the things that is so great about it is that uh, the poverty, the weirdness, it's there so much that people are like there's like a kind of a reverse snobbishness that there, like you can't put on airs or think you're too good or whatever. You will just get really taken down. It's like, who do you think you are? That it was just nuts. I remember, like, for instance, seeing a bar fight once with two women high on PCP who were pregnant and like just fighting like cats and dogs.
Both of
Just,
them were pregnant.
yes, on PCP.
That's a
This
hell of
was,
an image. I got. You sure you weren't cross-eyed?
and there just nutty stuff goes on there like that all the time.
You're a cartoonist, right? I want to see that as a cartoon.
And there was a woman that lived across the street from me, was a prostitute, and she weighed, I don't know, 300 or 400 pounds, and she was a triplet, and just like, and her brother was like a low level mafioso, and just nutty stuff. Then my friends, their mom was an alcoholic, and they'd always have to go down to the bar and get her because she would dance on tables for money for booze. And you kind of, you have to have a sense of humor when you see that kind of stuff,
Yeah, it's sort of to survive. It's
Yeah.
like a survival mechanism, and it's also just so
Well, I go
instinctive.
home and I tell my mom stuff like this, like, oh, Linda's mom was dancing at the, on the bar again. And then she'd go, oh, she just does that,
So let me ask, were the triplets all the same sort of size?
Well, no, they were all different because they weren't identical triplets. They were,
Okay.
so they were all, one was very, their names were Sissy, Sosie, and Scobie. Those were all like, nicknames.
So I don't think John claims he's not exaggerating when he makes films about um,
Yeah. And their mom
Baltimore. And
uh,
now I have a secondary source that can
it's
confirm it.
totally true. And then the mom had like really bad emphysema. So she was on like oxygen and, of course, smoking all of the time.
He's he has no imagination. He's just writing what he sees. I guess that's, I don't know what author told I don't know. That's
All that stuff is real. It's like crazy. I don't know. It's just people that they don't have unlike other cities, people just let their degeneracy, like, they just let it out, just let it fly. I guess because of that lack of judgment or whatever, it's just like,
yeah.
in other places, it's like more hidden.
Yeah. There's something amazing about it. It's so I'm certainly glad he when I was in my first year in college in University of Maine in Orono, it was pretty hellish because I wanted to be in New York City and film school and chasing my passion, and being in the big city, but I didn't. But my write up or my essay for NYU was too like help me, I'm suffering, save me from my friends, like whose father was a English professor, said like, Carrie, this is like, don't, they're not gonna, you're writing yourself like you're a Dostoevsky character, it's like you're pleading to them for it's like, just tell them what you've accomplished. The second time where I applied after the University of Maine, it's like, just tell them what you've done, what the awards you've achieved and like the film festivals you were in as a kid, to get into, I said, okay, then, at least. So, but my point is that in the University of Maine, at the bookstore, I found Shock Value, and that was like my that was my window into like, that was the creative oxygen
Right.
in this sort of desert, cultural desert. I mean, Stephen King made something out of it, so I'm not denigrating it. But for me, needed to be somewhere else. But finding Shock Value and reading it, I was just like in hysterics of why I love violence, all his rant against sports. And my brother was at the same school, and I like went to his dorm room and I said, you have to hear this. This is so funny. And he didn't think it was funny at all. And just his whole like warped view of the worst things and it's all become sort of mainstream now, but I guess
Yeah.
in 81 it was revelatory, and I don't think I was the only person of my age who was infected by that perspective, you
Right.
know and I was angry with him when he made Hairspray. Actually, I yelled at him when I was drunk on whiskey and twisted my ankle, and I still have the injury to this day. But how dare I yell at my idol, because Hairspray was too goody and it
Right.
wasn't harsh, and he was like, I've already made the harsh films, and I screamed, I need more. So I was a bit of a sick individual, and I think I've seen him. I used to see him when he would come to New York at certain and I think he always like avoided me, or I don't know if it was in my mind, but he probably remembers me
Yeah.
being, so I owe John Waters an amends, but I adore, his philosophy and films and stuff like that. And I guess I'm like, you know, he was a guy who got out of the underground and was able to actually make, you know, legit, you know, industry films, and you got to like hand it to him. You know, he pushed, you know, he didn't give up, and he didn't, you know, there are a lot of genius underground artists who just, you know, don't push through or even can't get the next either record or book out or whatever. So it's like anybody who can actually achieve, I don't, or even finish anything, you know, I give kudos to. But
Yeah,
at that point, I was like, I wanted him to stay giving me like the harshness and stuff. Yeah.
right. Well, he certainly, he continues to be like creatively like really viable. Didn't he do that not that long ago? That thing where he went hitchhiking
Yeah.
and spoke about it. I mean,
Car sick. Yeah. It's like, I
that's
think half the book is what he thinks is going to happen, and the rest of the half is what actually happened. So it's
yeah,
amazing. It's like, this is my imaginary hitchhiking across America. You know,
right.
this is what I think. This is, it's amazing. Yeah. So he's still he's got a fertile imagination, and I
Yeah,
think I think Hairspray influenced a lot of kids to get you know, maybe become activists and so forth. I don't know.
yeah.
Just like I think probably getting an avatar in those like games where you become, what are they called, like where you take on a personality. I think those are, I don't know.
Yeah,
So I don't, kids today, is the world
yeah.
more crazy, or am I just old? Am I just old, or is the world really crazy?
I don't know. It's so weird. I don't understand a lot of it. I just try to think, well, it's probably good, you know. I think one of the things that is so irritating to me is how everyone wants to identify with being some kind of victim now. And, I came from a different mindset, where you didn't want to be a victim. Like, that's what you were constantly fighting against, not to get street cred by like being a victim. And I don't know, it's just weird. I don't understand how that's empowering at all. I don't know if that's something you've noticed.
Yeah, I mean, I've certainly heard it from whatever media outlets I find my eyes in front of. I can't, but as far as like, you know, the real world, I don't really see it in the real world. But I, you know, I only have a handful of friends and so forth. And, but yeah, it's like, it's hard to tell, to get a balanced view of the world when I realize that I'm just looking at whatever YouTube algorithm chooses to put in front of my face, unless I, you know, throw something in to kind of futz with it. But that's what I've heard, and I just don't like. I don't like like when before I got married, Melissa was into sports and she loved the news, and I hated the news and politics, and I hated sports. And I said, okay, if we're gonna live together and move in together and get married and everything, I hate sports and I hate the news. You have to choose between one or the other. And she chose to give up sports. And I kind of regret it now. But I think in the same way I hate team sports, like sometimes I can get into like a one-on-one, like a tennis match or whatever. I can sort of identify with either one of the people. It's because I think I identify with individuals rather than these groups.
Right.
And I always was afraid of groups, and I didn't like this team sort of gang up, you know, this team idea of like my team against your team. And I think there's a parallel in politics where things can be more like about defending your team rather than weighing, you know, the evidence and being able to say, well, perhaps I don't know, you know, but you get this catharsis of like, or take a victory lap when your team has won or whatever. But and I guess it's, and I almost wish I'd chosen her, Melissa, to watch sports instead of the news. I think
Right.
I would have been better off in a way. But you know, withdrawal from life isn't always the best choice. So
Yeah. No, I definitely understand what you're saying about, you know, like group psychology like that. People become different when they're sort of emboldened by being in a certain kind of group.
yeah, their
It's
personal responsibility gets dissipated. They don't feel as like they're actually gonna that they're responsible for what the group
Right.
does, and so it can allow our darker nature to, give license to it and kind of go like, well, I was just a bystander or whatever. Or I don't
Yeah.
know, because we do have dark, forces, or impulses or whatever, and I think that's what's great about John Waters is that you can sometimes laugh at it and stuff,
Yeah.
and to
Well, it's
heal it.
definitely true. I mean, with what happened, just like what happened in Rwanda, it's like horrifying. But also like what happens when there's an outdoor show and, people show up early and they set this big boundary, like this is where our group, right in front of the stage, and they won't let anyone else in there. And there'll be like three people and they've got like all of this real estate. That's always irritating me. That in Rwanda.
What do you mean, rock concerts or?
Yeah, outdoor
uh,
show. Haven't you ever been there? You go to the show and like the people with the blankets come and they go up to the beginning and they like claim like all of this real estate, way more than they actually need. And
Listen, last concert I was at was King Crimson, and we were all seated politely, just like Robert Fripp was, and we politely listened and we politely clapped, and there was no like yahooing. It was all very. What
I,
are these dead shows? What are you talking about?
I did see a couple of dead shows. I guess I don't know. That's just one of the many things that irritates me. People claiming little bits of, coming early and claiming bits of real estate and
Right.
yeah.
Well, when I read,
Like our
we
founding fathers did in this country. They came over here and they claimed all this real estate for themselves.
so did everybody else. It's the way of the world. But I mean, we
Yeah.
read Conrad Lorenz's On Aggression when I was in high school. We got some good books. We got the Lives of a Cell. I don't know, but Conrad Lorenz like researched, birds and animals and how they claim territory and mark territory and what they did to sort of defend things. And so it's very primal as far as like territory and so forth.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I guess I'm kind of paranoid.
Me
And I,
too.
yeah,
But now
I
it's
totally,
appropriate. Now it's totally down. Jeffrey Epstein. Don't get me started. So,
I
all
almost
right.
split up with I almost split up with one of my boyfriends once just because like I went over his place, he got stoned, he kept looking in the bathroom all the time.
Your
And I was
bathroom or his?
like, his. I'm like, why are you looking in the bathroom all the time? Like what? He's like, what? I'm not doing anything. I'm just glancing over there. And I was like, that's it. This is over.
You know, listen, I mean, that's completely understandable. It's like, but you don't understand that when he walks into the bathroom, he looks at that mirror. You know who's looking back? He might not. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you were right in that.
The smallest thing can really set me off. I don't know. I have problems at work. Oh my God, someone reported me because this guy was supposed to be like the helper nurse and I asked him to do something and he said he was busy and I rolled my eyes at him like, and then he like wrote me up. He made this big deal out of it. Like that I was unprofessional because I rolled my eyes at him. And then I was suddenly like paranoid that everyone in the institution, from like the president of the place to the patients, all hated me and were out to get me. And
Well, it's
this
probably
went
true.
well,
You think it's 100%. It's probably 25%, but it's something inside of you is trying to protect you.
yeah.
Did you see
Well,
that lecture between the cop and the lawyer about like you shouldn't talk to the police? It's a YouTube thing going around, and the lawyer goes on and he says, "There's no benefit in talking to the police. Like the Miranda rights is everything you say can and will be used against you." And he's like, "You can only indict yourself
right.
because everything you say, nothing you say will be used to benefit your case. They're only looking for what's gonna." But you're talking to a paranoid, so don't listen to me. I
Well,
mean,
I've seen enough of those true crime things. I know that's true. because the cops get so pissed off when you just lawyer up, I mean, there's a reason for that. But I think why people talk to the cops is they want the cops to, rule them out as a
And
suspect.
I'm not anti-cop. I think it's a shitty job, and like if they're not going to do it, who's gonna? And I don't really want to go there, but okay, how was junior high?
That was junior high for me. It was just total misery. Remember the day I got my period, it was just a nightmare. It was just like, I think I was in the seventh grade, and then I got beat up by like two girls, followed me on the bus and got off at the bus where I got off, and then they like roughed me up for a couple, like I think it was $1. I got really upset, and then I went home, and I think my mom called the cops, which was probably not the best thing to do.
They roughed you up for $1?
Yeah,
Okay, just wondering if
it
I
was
heard that correctly.
yeah, it was just all, it was, and then I was so scared after that to, but then I kind of toughened up after that. And then I learned you have to pretend to be like crazy or mean all of the time.
I do that. I use
Yeah,
my crazy as a boundary setter. And yeah, I got beat up in like third or fourth grade by a girl, but that just essentially is she chased me, she overpowered me and had me on the ground, and I maybe her knees on my and
yeah,
that was humiliating because it was just being overpowered by anybody, because my brother would always want to fight, and I never won any physical fights, and we took karate and stuff. And so but I sort of made it a joke and laughed at it and picked out Kevin, who was the tallest guy in our class, and said, Kevin, a girl beat me up. I need a bodyguard. So will you follow me around and protect me? He said, sure. We had a great friendship, and I gave him a job. It's like, you're
yeah,
gonna be my bodyguard. It's like, I used humor to just like uh, cover up the humiliation.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, but I did, and I always like, I don't know. There was Fred Dillon. He was from Portland. He was a tough guy in fifth grade, and we'd go over to his house, and he had like, some porno mags and some Beatles records and Black Sabbath records, but he'd always want to wrestle. Like he had a single mom. She had taken him to see Fritz the Cat, an X-rated movie, and I was like, "This guy's in fifth grade. He's seen an X-rated movie. He's got porno in his house. He's got Beatles record." And I was like, "Can I listen to those Beatles records?" He's like, "No, those are my mom's records. Those suck." I was like, "Beatles, Beatles." I was like, "Damn, okay." He's like, "I want to wrestle," and I was like, "I'd wrestle with him." And I was like, I hated wrestling, and I just wanted to get it over with. But I did beat him. I'm like, and I did it by having his neck and then like twisting my wrist into his neck until it was so painful that he stopped. And
Yeah,
I just wanted it to stop. So, but I didn't, but mostly it was psychological, as far as like the
right.
horrendous things. What about, okay, so did you have any like artistic outlets or music? What struck you? Music, literature, or anything when
I
you were
used
a
to
kid?
read a lot. I read a
What?
lot. I used to read a lot. A lot.
Like what
Because
kind of stuff?
I used to love all those Russian authors, like Dostoevsky and um, Tolstoy and all of that. And
What's your favorite Dostoevsky?
well, Crime and Punishment is to me great.
Yeah.
Tolstoy, my favorite is probably. I like that story, The Death of Ivan Ilyich. That's a shorter. Anna Karenina is good. I really like War and Peace. But I read a lot. I just got into comics later. I'm not a cartoonist, but
No.
I worked for Fantagraphics. I loved underground or alternative comics. Not
Which
really.
ones?
Um, Hate. I was actually kind of one of the characters in Hate. Is sort of like
Wow, I love hate. I love, I
yeah,
call it Buddy Bradley.
Yeah.
That's what my wife calls it. Why don't you, when I'm, like depressed or whatever, she's like, why don't you read Buddy Bradley? Because I've got the volumes here. And like, I like, Crumb and Doug Allen Steven, I love.
Oh, I love Steven. That's the one
Yeah.
with the cactus, right? Give me some
Yeah.
socks, babe.
Yeah.
I
The
love that.
drinking.
I love that guy.
Yeah. I was actually in a band with him. He was playing bass with this band in New York.
Oh,
And my
wow.
friend Peter like loved, like he got me into Steven. But yeah, I was in a band with Doug Allen. I was like, holy shit.
Wow. I met
Yeah.
him once or twice, at comic stuff, but I was a big fan of that one. And Tony Millionaire, he was a good friend of mine also. I was his roommate for a while. He did like Maki's, which I
Like,
guess not around. I don't think it survived the all of the PC stuff that
yeah.
this is not very politically correct.
Right. So what character were you in Buddy Bradley, I'll call it?
I guess that character Lisa. I mean, it was kind of an amalgamation of people he knew,
Yeah.
but yeah.
So did you write for comics as far not rather than draw them? Because you have a couple of credits.
I wrote one comic
And you
that
drew it?
no, someone else drew it.
Okay.
It was in like an anthology. It's called Pies for Men. I was I was actually, and I think if you Google it, it might come up.
Okay.
I was actually pretty proud of it, but no, I'm not. If you're looking for a resume of like all the cool stuff I've done, it just doesn't exist.
That's
I'm
okay.
just, a dilettante at pretty much everything. But I still have a Super 8 film that I haven't edited from when I was like in college. So maybe I'll get around to it one
I've
day.
still got my guillotine splicer if you want it. I don't know if the tape works anymore.
Yeah, I actually got it transferred to um, digital.
Digital?
It's
Yeah.
digital on, so
All
maybe
right.
when I die, I'll.
We transfer it to me and I'll edit it together.
It was horrifying to look at to see how much I've aged because it's like, oh my god, because this is from when I was 20, and I'm like,
Hey, what would 20-year-old Helena think of you now?
wow. Oh, I remember when I was in my 20s, I'd think, oh, when the year 2000 comes, I'm going to be so old, I can't imagine what that's like, to be so old. And what, I was like, I don't know, 35 or something in the year 2000. I don't know.
I felt ancient at like 15 or whatever,
Yeah,
because I was reading like Nausea and Being and Nothingness, where the Nausea spoke to me, the Jean-Paul Sartre thing, which
yeah,
is it's just like depression and mental illness.
yeah, I know.
It's not a philosophy. That was
Not
one of
bad.
these things. There was this book called like an incomplete education, which is sort of like a philosophy for dummies, history for dummies, poetry
Right,
for dummies. Before the poetry for dummies, before the philosophy for dummies, it was a book that sort of, it was a shorthand, so you could go into a party and impress people by dropping names like
right.
Hannah Arendt or whatever,
Yeah.
and William Carlos Williams, and know exactly what precisely to say. And my point is, did I lose it? Probably. What were we talking about
But now we
before?
have now we have Wikipedia for that.
Yeah.
You can just go into the bathroom when you're at the party and just uh, Wikipedia real quick and then come out
Oh,
and
the
have.
the point was with their existentialism was, is it a philosophy or just a bad feeling?
All right.
That was their thing. So yeah,
I
that
definitely had a copy of Nausea that I carried around with me all the time to try to look cool. I don't know if I actually read it.
yeah. But
Um,
Robert
I
Crumb
was
did
a philosophy major.
what?
I was a philosophy major
You were?
actually, and
Who's your
yeah.
favorite philosopher?
Oh,
Was
I
that a
kind
sigh
of,
of disgust or what?
I
What?
kind of realized that all of that stuff was, I barely graduated at the end. I was like, I'm done with this. It reminded me of being like a hamster in like, an aquarium trying to figure it out. Like somehow I'm gonna just figure this shit out, you know? And it's just like ridiculous. You can't do that. I'm much more,
And Nietzsche's just like, oh, just pretend that this is going to happen over and over and over again. That'll make you make the right choices. And it's all like a,
yeah.
yeah, thanks, Nietzsche, for fake it till you make it or act as if, you know.
And those Germans, were so, I read like Kant, and a lot of
Did
it
you
is
read? Did you read
incomprehensible
Hegel? What?
to me.
I'm sorry, I'm
No,
interrupting.
no,
No, it's like I
it was the
know.
worst. No way.
But apparently he had it all figured out, and then all his children were like, "Fuck you, man, you're wrong." Like Kierkegaard and Nietzsche were like, "No,
Yeah,
whatever." I don't know. I'm fascinated by it, but I was like, I would never pay top dollar for this stuff. I just want to hang around with academics and pretend to. And none of the jargon I really understood, but it's some part of me I think got it, and I even think a lot of it is guesswork to the
yeah,
practitioners, and even but we don't but I don't know, and a lot of them are speaking to the philosophers previously, so sometimes the terminology references the ones from the past. It's fascinating, but yeah, it's like I guess all you could do to make a living is teach it, and then yeah, it's not something that's going to help.
well, I talk, grew up kind of poor. I talked my way into Johns Hopkins because, I thought that was the best I could do in Baltimore, in terms of college. And
That's where
then
you studied philosophy.
I was a transfer student. And
Okay.
then so after I was there, I realized that uh, I was kind of in over my head. Like I read this philosophy. I write the papers. I would get sometimes good grades, but I'm not sure how much I was really understanding it because, whatever philosopher I read, none of it, uh, I just always think, yeah, but, and then I come up with all of but they encourage you to do that in philosophy. That's really what you're doing. You try to find the holes in someone's argument or worldview. And if you're just doing that all the time, it's like, where does that get you? I don't know.
You just become a spoiled sport. That's all. You become a
Yeah.
Debbie Downer.
Excuse me, Sarker, that doesn't make any
You
sense.
thought you
Duh.
figured it out. You thought you figured it out, but hold on. Paragraph 3 in chapter 10. You make this claim and
Yeah,
it's unsupportable. Sort of scramble over it. But wait a second. If I was to, I don't know. I'm fascinated by it, but it's probably a big, like, I guess it's like that I could figure life out rather than having to live it. It's like,
yeah,
God forbid I have to live. But the only knowledge is through experience, really, because it goes through your whole system. It doesn't just go through your head, it goes through your heart and
absolutely.
goes through your body. It's like there's dimensions of consciousness that, are not all just, I don't know, just like the left and the right hemisphere, whatever. I mean, my wife thinks it's fringe, but I mean, that I think that it think,
No, not at
you know what
all.
I'm saying? No?
Cringe at all. I've been
Yeah.
doing Zen now for, I don't know, about 6 or 7 years, and it's all, that's really what it's about. It's like you just have to have your experience and process it, and that's what it is. That's life, really. Just the
Yeah.
experience.
Or what I just mean, like thinking, understanding things on an intellectual level and sort of like a left brain level, and then actually like having emotions about it, and it has a lot of to do with like someone's fear level and how, and like if you're gonna, like I was told I should meditate, and I was afraid that I would lose my edge. I was afraid that I would lose any kind of urgency. I was afraid I would lose ambition. I would lose drive, and so I hung on and I thought I would suffer as an artist, and that was the most important thing for me. I was like, I didn't care if I was suffering as long as I could make some work, and if I could, I could make a film. If I could make a film, I'd make a piece of music, and that would sort of redeem, not necessarily redeem, or it's like that's what I most cared about. It was like, okay, I had to pay the rent, okay, I had to pay the bills, but what I most cared about was not necessarily my well-being, but if I could make something. And then my point is, well, I don't know what my point is that my fear
Meditation,
my fear of meditation was that I was going to lose that. The irony is that
right?
both, Rick Rubin started meditating when he was 14, and he's worth, you know tons of, he's made history and I went to
Yeah.
college with him. So like, and I apparently I haven't made history, but but I was afraid of that, and you just work from a different place. Yeah, I think you actually have more freedom. But I think when the fear comes down, and I think I also thought I would. Also, you get more choice too, rather than living by compulsion and living by fear and panic. Um, there's still an engine of you still sometimes you can sense you can sense more things, your sensitivity, like your instrument gets a little more um, fine-tuned, and
Yeah.
you might actually make better work. I realized that wasn't the case, but did you have any fear of like doing Zen would affect you in a,
No,
yeah,
I think that comes from a place maybe of, I don't know. I could see like maybe people. I don't think that the artist is of your neuroses. I mean
yeah,
that, that's not where the art is coming from.
I think it's been debunked. I think you're right.
Yeah,
I
it
think
doesn't come from
Sting debunked it of all
out,
people, but
or from alcoholism. People will often be like, "Oh, well, if I stop drinking, I'm not going to be able to be creative anymore." I mean, it's just, you know, it's not your mental illness that is causing creativity.
God damn it. You think I have to give it up? But also, I think it's like, I remember being invited to a boy-girl party when I was like in 5th or 6th grade, and my mother was all like happy about it. I was like, that's creepy. And I went, and like, of course I had, I was in love with one girl, and I had a crush on one girl, and I was like, I wasn't interested in anybody else. And then when someone I wasn't too keen on, chose me to be the kissee, I was like, no. And I just ran around. I ran away, and all the children or young adults like chased me around the house until they caught me, and then I just feigned an epileptic fit, and they were just like, this guy's no fun. And I went alone inside the house and listened to Cheech and Chong records, and they continued to do their kissing game and mature as young adults and probably have unwanted children or venereal
Yeah,
diseases, and I'm unscathed. But I looked back at that, and I was like, look, I used sickness like a feigning an epileptic fit, to tell them to get away from me, as a boundary. And I
yeah.
realized that, maybe that is a very unsophisticated way of setting a boundary with other people.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
I've definitely used depression, my depression to set boundaries with people, and I don't know. I don't
Until
even
it
know.
becomes too much, until you can't function. No.
Yeah,
Has
yeah.
Zen helped your depression?
I think what I feel like it doesn't like fix my depression, but it allows me to get on top of it, in a certain kind of way where I'm not like when I'm depressed, I'm not completely defining myself by those feelings or what's going on. It's just one aspect of myself and it's also somewhat, in Zen, you get to a place where everything you kind of feel like everything is a kind of delusion, and I know that, this depression, is kind of just one of many delusions I have about myself. That
So,
doesn't make it feel real at times. I mean, there are times where it feels very real, but um,
so what does your Zen practice entail, if you can say?
just meditation. Sometimes I do some Zen study. I do some retreats. I belong to a Zen center. Um, I don't really do close study with a particular Zen master because I'm just kind of anti-authoritarian, and that whole relationship just kind of freaks me out. It's, I'm the same way with therapists in a way. It's like I don't really want to. I don't really like the intensity of that, and I need to have a level of trust to to be able to really open up with someone. And I'm too paranoid, frankly. I mean, I
Yeah.
guess I have that with Peter, which is great, So he has to be my therapist and my Zen master because I pretty much trust him more than probably anyone.
Yeah, I think it's not I think the paranoia is or fear, isn't always bad. It is there as an instinct to protect you. It might be overstated, but
Yeah.
I think it's in keeping with one's own past experience and one's own susceptibility. I think it knows this instinctively, one's own susceptibility to suggestion. And because and I would call that with me like my tendency to want to people please and then lose myself in the process because I want the approval of another person. And if I don't feel that I'm strong enough in my own sense of like my own voice and my own instincts, if I don't feel strong enough in them, like where I'm situated, then it might be best to sort of keep sort of the master at arm's length, or even just right. I mean, when I started meditating, all I did was like I started meditating. I think the first time I was in college at University of Maine. The good thing is that I had a roommate who was really into King Crimson, and I'd never heard it, and he was like, "Listen to The Lark's Tongue and Aspect Part One with headphones and just like in a dark room." And
Right.
I'd sort of done that before too with my band in Maine. Like we would just sit in the dark with untuned guitars and just sort of like plunk along in the dark through like a long echo with two tape recorders, like strung together, like that. Terry Riley developed, and then Eno kind of did it, and then Frippatronics was the same sort of system. And so, in that way, I would meditate, with
Right.
music, or like, I would sort of surrender to the music. And then sort of later in life, when things were very stressful and I had sort of this corporate job and then a marriage, and sort of I started to just listen to guided meditation that I would get off YouTube because it was free. And then at a certain point, I just went with silence, and I didn't give myself a mantra. I didn't give myself any um, structure or any kind of like goal besides to just sit in silence for an hour. And I actually had an app,
Yeah.
not an app, but an MP3 like that had an intro, welcome to your hour meditation, and then sort of a 3-minute warning. And so I would just sit with headphones and know that I could just lie in silence. And I didn't sort of judge any thought. I didn't say, oh, I have to shut these thoughts out. There was no, if they came, I did whatever I did with them, and I just let them come and go. And if I wanted to sort of like be therapist to that fear or that thought, I could do that.
Yeah.
So I think I have the same instinct of not trusting authority and not trusting myself with authority, meaning that I probably, I could, put myself in sort of danger of being hurt because I don't know, with the people pleasing or I don't, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't trust myself with other people because I lose myself. And then when I lose myself and I get hurt, then I get pissed off, but I'm like pissed at myself too, that I haven't protected myself. So I think like finding a safe distance where it's not isolation, but it's a certain distance that you feel safe in, but you can still make progress. Does that make any sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if those are, I know you're saying about the people pleasing. I don't know if that's my issue. I don't know what my issue is. I just don't like to get too close to other people.
Yeah. I mean, it's
Uh,
a term, and these terms can sometimes like be part of a tradition, but
I
sometimes they can be
feel,
interchangeable.
definitely a
What?
situation where I definitely feel like if I'm getting too close to someone, I start feeling like, I guess expectations, like there are going to be expectations here, and I don't want those.
Okay.
So let's just forget this, whatever it is, let's just stop this right now, and
So is this more with relationships, or I mean, romantic relationships, or even
relationship,
like what?
yeah, sure, even but any relationship, whether
Friendship?
that's a long-term romantic relationship
Yeah.
or a friendship or someone I just met that sat down next to me on the bus.
So what do you feel? What do you feel closest to? Because I kind of feel closest to, my films and my music. I mean, some of my songs are like old friends. Like I'll be like, I'll listen to it and I remember where I was and I remember how I was feeling, and it was like, and I was like, I'm starting to like be a fan of my own music because it's almost like going through a diary and going like, that's where I was, and then and it's speaking to me, and I don't think it speaks to anybody else, but it's like having a friend that
Uh,
went through a experience with you.
yeah.
Do you feel closest to any other thing like a artwork, or maybe it's your kids, or
I have a kind of like an obsession with the fall and
the,
the Marky Smith.
the Fall? Yeah, okay, the band, yeah.
Yeah. So
I
like
saw them
real,
break up on stage at Brownies, and
yeah,
I forget what year that was.
yeah. I haven't seen him too many times. I saw him once in New York. He was so loaded. He dropped his microphone and then he couldn't find it. And he was just like walking around on stage, like, I guess for like 5 minutes till finally someone just like randomly looking around, while the band was playing. Finally, someone went up on the stage and realized he's looking for the microphone. And then I picked it up and handed it to him. That was great. Then I
Jesus
heard,
Christ.
he right he had, he didn't die that long ago. And I'm
Yeah.
in like a Facebook group, and some people saw him like at a show about two weeks before he died or so. And like he had like lung cancer or whatever, was
Wow.
looked terrible, and he came out in a wheelchair. He had like edema or whatever,
Jesus.
swelling, and he just did a show. And like
Wow.
people were complaining about it, like, oh, like, this is a travesty. I paid good money to come see him. It's just an old dying man in a wheelchair. That's fucking great. Like, who does that? I don't know why he did it, for the money or just because the show's got to go on.
And
But
we're fucking doomed, man. If people don't think that's cool,
that is
it's like we're
insanely
fucking
cool.
doomed, man. That's the
Yeah,
coolest fucking thing I've ever heard,
I
man.
know, I know. Then
It's
there's
like,
a famous picture of him at like Glastonbury where he's pissed his pants and he's just
oh,
on
Jesus.
stage. I'm like,
It's
that's
sad,
so
man.
great.
It's sad that people were like, oh my God. All right. So, is it sad, or am I just old? Am I wrong? You've got
Sad.
kids.
Yeah,
Have to have some pulse on what's happening.
yeah. I don't know. They
They're
don't people
wrong, right?
like that transgressive culture anymore. That
Yeah.
people, the kids don't like it anymore.
Yeah. They want to save space because their family wasn't safe, apparently.
Yeah.
Not for me to judge.
And
But
they just, they don't understand it. It's just like, oh, people being mean, or
yeah.
I was friends with this young guy, and he was like, "Oh, you boomers, you just want to be able to be as mean as you want to be, and so you can make jokes." I'm like,
Because we got pressures. We got pressures. We got the man on our back every 24/7, and we got like a godless universe. We got the void sticking right into our face every day. Get up to work, and we have to push out the so what, so what, so what. All right, my rant. I don't know. I mean, fine. I mean, I'm glad. Like if because usually it was a relief to feel someone express in a creative and safe way,
yeah,
the frustration and the sort of like this part of your soul that's sort of
yeah,
screaming, like what things are screwed up and somebody's got to say something. And if you can, but maybe they don't have that irritation, or that something that's being, killed, a spirit being killed within them that needs to kind of come out in a safe way. So maybe they've just had they're less emotionally tormented. They're more at
yeah,
peace with the world, which,
yeah,
God bless them. I mean, it's like,
yeah. And speaking of work, when I was talking about work before, I was getting a report from one of these, a younger nurse, and she said, "I'll see you tomorrow." And I said, "Maybe not. You might get hit by a car."
oh,
Right?
Jesus.
And
Helena,
then
you have to watch.
she reported me.
Oh,
I got
Jesus.
reported for that too. It's like, come on, it's a fucking joke. What does she think? I'm putting I don't know.
You're going to end up on a list.
I know. I can't keep my mouth shut. I'm always saying something obnoxious.
Just say, God, if you, I don't know if you said God bless you or go with the Lord, would they get mad too?
No, probably not.
Oh,
No, I
peace
think
be with you. Just I don't know. I mean, your job must be stressful, right,
oh
nurse? I
my
mean,
God,
the
it's
hours must be
terrible.
crazy, right?
People are dying
My
all over the
my
place.
God, it's like you're not going to give a registered nurse a pass on having a bit of a catharsis. You know, it's an expression. It's a release of anxiety and tension
Yeah.
in a. Well, but whatever. Look, you
You
know,
know, I've
you're
always had
talking
this.
to a paranoid. So
I'm a
you
weird
know
person, and it's hard
what?
for me to. I'm just a weird person, and it's hard for me to be in these institutional environments where you have to have a certain kind of like this false professionalism, and it's hard sometimes. But
Yeah, and that's like, um, yeah, it's just the way it is. It's just the way it
yeah,
is, and it's like, you know, you got to protect yourself, and so you know, you just gotta work on that avatar, work on that role. You gotta brush up your the face you show to the world, or at
that's
least your
right.
professional world. It's like, you know,
Yeah. On Facebook,
Ted
I
Bundy
don't
called it
even.
his mask of sanity.
Yeah, I have this
It's a joke.
this fake personality on Facebook because I can't, I can't. I'm afraid to like, maybe it's just the paranoia. Peter does it all the time. I'm afraid to be myself under my real name because people are gonna take everything wrong. They're just
Yeah,
gonna get all.
weaponize it or something. I don't know, but usually it's just they're I don't know, it says more about them. But yeah, I understand. I got off Facebook for like, you know, a year. I just like tore everything down. It's just like because I was just getting sort of hysterical there, and like I realized it was just an echo chamber. I was just like posting all this stuff that I thought was cool and great, and like, and then it's like, I don't know, I'm just like, and I'm wasting a lot of like passion and creativity and like energy on something that just sort of goes down a bottomless pit. And you know, I
Yeah,
don't I don't, it wasn't like arguing with people. I don't want to argue with people. I'm not interested in all that and getting into all this stuff. I think it's great to have the internet and be able to listen to different points of view and stuff like that, and like get different sides and be like, all right. But I just withdrew from Facebook, and then I said, well, let me enter back in and just kind of like promote, not really promote, but just have availability for films or music, and just sort of, and then even when I post stuff, sometimes I take it down after a week or two, and just sort of like limit it and make sure I don't get wrapped up in it. And like, and if I do get caught up in some kind of like, you know, preoccupied with some kind of idea or something, you know, I'll just channel it into a film that might, maybe no one will see, or a
right.
couple of friends will see, and put that energy into a creative work. Like I used to just write verse, like when I was working at the MTA, and things were sort of dull or whatever, or I like on my commute, I would just write verse and then turn it into a song on the weekend. And so that's where I put a lot of the stuff that I was wasting on Facebook. And then I just want to get caught up because it really is a false kind of environment anyway. So you kind of have to, if you're being real there, you're just going to be, you know, vulnerable to getting beat up because it's, I feel like it's I feel like it's as a mentality of like, because I didn't grow up with the, what is it called? Like the, like Dungeons and Dragons. What are those things
All the
called? Role
fantasy
playing.
role playing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
fantasy role playing. I feel like there's probably a generation that grew up with that, and this is like um, an iteration of it that
yeah,
maybe not literally, but they can, but they might. I don't know. It's just a theory I'm throwing out to myself to kind of understand why maybe by having this fantasy role playing, maybe it's easier for. But there's also just the anonymity and just the tendency to people wanting to bully, and the whole like Milgram experiment thing, where the,
right.
you know, normal people were buzzing people where it was really dangerous because a man in a white coat. But it's also just fun. It just makes it easy to be mean and cruel, and it's just a dopamine hit or whatever for being, and then them not knowing. I don't know. It's just a, I'm busy torturing myself. I don't need others
Right.
people to do it. It's probably why I do it. I probably torture myself so others, you know, will leave me alone.
I'm still fascinated by it. I don't know. I like to get in groups and post weird things and see how to see how people take it, like whether it's kind of like trolling, but I'm not really a mean troll.
It's
I'm
more
just,
playful.
yeah, I'm more
Yeah.
playful, sometimes people, oh, that's funny. They'll realize it's a joke, but other times people will, will not understand what that it was a joke. And yeah, a lot of people do not have a very good sense of humor. That's one of the things I've noticed in life.
Yeah.
Do you
So
have a good
what?
sense of humor?
What?
Do you have a
No,
sense of humor?
I'm a deadly serious. No, I I don't know. Do I? I
I
would
don't
think that
know.
I do.
I think you have kind of an offbeat sense of humor.
Yes.
But I think that I'm going to guess that things can turn very dark with you very quickly. Like you're not able to sustain that level of uh, detachment.
No, I'm ruled by my emotions,
Yeah,
and sometimes they overwhelm me, and I've indulged them for much of my life because I thought that was the fuel for my creativity. As I said
right.
before, why abandon this
Yeah,
craziness if I in this emotional upheaval if I can somehow wrestle it into and transform it into a work, a film, or a
yeah.
piece of music. And I was afraid that if I became calm and more at peace, I would lose that. And but we already went over that. So what did you want to be when you grew up, when you were a kid?
I guess I wanted to be a writer. I thought about that a lot. And I guess I do a little bit of writing, but I realized I wasn't going to have the stamina or the drive necessary to really make a career out of that. Plus, the whole bottom fell out of all of that stuff. Nobody reads anymore, and
Well, my wife is gonna stop listening to podcasts because they're starting to charge subscriptions, and
yeah,
she's going back to reading. I have tons of books that I've read at least part of. I
yeah,
still love reading, and I love having them around. And apparently, they're gonna, they want people without possessions or whatever. They're gonna have
yeah,
everything. They want all my films on a cloud. I'm like, no, I want them on my drives at home. I don't
right.
know. So let's see.
And then I became a nurse because it was at around 9/11. I was just like, decided to become a nurse. My son was about a year old, and I was, in New York then, and I remember being in a panic like right afterwards and just running in Brooklyn. We were in Brooklyn, and I just ran to the hospital. And I'm like, why am I running to the hospital for help? I don't know, for my own anxiety. And then I just realized that that's a kind of a place of safety for me. Like, even though I'm not a hypochondriac or even a sick person, like the hospital is where you go when horrible things happen. So I was like,
Wow. So
well,
that happened the day of 9/11
I kind of made the decision to go into healthcare or do something in healthcare.
because you kind of instinctively ran to a hospital
Yeah,
on that day.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got there. I was like, what can I do? Can I give blood? And they're like, no,
Huh.
everybody dead.
Wow.
Yeah, we don't need
What
any
hospital
blood.
was it? What neighborhood?
Which one it was? It was over in Brooklyn. It was in walking distance. I don't know. Is Peter here? Are you here? No. Yeah.
Wow. So when did you start your study as a nurse?
Well, not long after that, I started doing the prereqs because I didn't have a lot of the science stuff, like anatomy and stuff like that. And then I don't know, I've been a nurse for about 12 years. I just went to community college to
Okay.
out here in California. So
Wow. Well,
it's intense.
you're a
It's
first
very,
responder, man. I mean,
I am.
kudos to you.
I take
You
that
know,
stuff
I'm
seriously.
not
I was
worthy.
on a
What?
plane. A guy had an epileptic. I take that seriously. A guy had an epileptic attack when I was on an airplane, and I was like, I went right in there. I was like,
Beautiful, beautiful. But you know, watch what you say at work, okay? I'm sorry. I know you're sacrificing and you're giving and you're giving and giving, but as the story goes, no good deed goes
That's
unpunished.
right. Don't act
No,
weird at work.
don't what?
Don't act weird at work. Yeah.
Don't act weird. And you know, bring it home and meditate on it, or you know,
Yeah,
kick the dog when no one is looking.
right.
Just kidding. But I, you know, thank you for your service. Thank for sacrificing for us less worthy. And it's about an hour and a half. Do you have anything else to say?
Oh, that's it. I have to get going too. I have to go save the world at the farmer's market with
Beautiful. This world needs saving. Can I say sister safely? This world needs saving, sister.
yeah,
Am I
sure.
misgendering you?
No, I'm kind of non-binary, but I don't make a point of it. I have a vagina. I don't feel attached to my sex. I don't know about you. I don't really care one way or
I
the
don't
other.
care either.
Yeah.
Call me thee and thou. I don't know if you care, fine. I mean, you know, I don't want to hurt anybody's
No,
feelings.
me neither. Me
And if
neither.
you can, I don't know. We're just boomers. Look, we're hopeless boomers.
True.
You
Yeah,
know, let them, you know, if they can do a better job, God bless them.
right.
All
Good for you.
right.
Okay.
So
Care.
it was great to talk to you. Thanks so
Yeah.
much.
Okay.
All right. Take it easy.